So back in late July, a Transformers Facebook group called TF Prototype showed off a couple of kind of low quality images of a potential Transformers Masterpiece Cliffjumper. Now, these were casted in a test shot kind of green, gave off this extremely tap out slash wasp vibe to it. People were speculating that it might be fake, that it might not be real, and that was that. Fast forward to today, and the dark web of the internet had supposedly images of the alt mode kicking around, but those images were not shared because it kind of gave away who the source of these images were initially. And now we have a full photo shoot separate from those original images that really just show everything that's going on with this figure. So let's jump into that. Now, this is a partial retool of the Masterpiece MP Bumblebee version 2.0. Again, that Bumblebee's intent and its goal was to try to match as best as it could the Floro Dery design of the animation model and, of course, the alt mode, where instead of it being a full-size Volkswagen Beetle and taking that Volkswagen Beetle and all of its kibble, if you will, and trying to make some kind of Bumblebee out of it, they tried to then instead achieve that more squat, smaller Microman, Microchange, Chrono Q design Beetle, and on the flip side of that, also try to get that perfect aesthetic of the Floro Dery simplified animation model based off of that Microman toy all those years ago. Again, those were designs that were never really intended to make a perfect one-to-one toy to animation transformation, dare I say, but they're still trying to this day to try to achieve that. Some characters are easier than others to do, like let's say a Shockwave, that have different origins, but stuff like this Microman Bumblebee or the Microman Volkswagen, the intent was never there initially. And to do that sometimes leads to kibble and all kinds of stuff, and the criticism that exists from that version 2.0 Bumblebee. I personally have no problem with it because I know what they were trying to achieve, and it's tough to do that within the limitations of what exists of something that's literally from almost 40 years ago. So, especially from the design standpoint. So I understand it. And the same kind of vibe, if you will, transfers over that to this Cliffjumper design. Same thing. This was based off of a full-size Porsche 942 or 944, depending on which one you want to roll with. They're interchangeable in terms of small little aesthetic differences. But at the end of the day, was originally a full-size Porsche, squished down for the original Chrono Q Microchange Microman design back in 1982, when ported over to Transformers, kept that design, and kind of absent is its Porsche history, not to mention a lot of people always assuming that Cliffjumper was just a red repaint of Bumblebee, which is totally inaccurate. So we still have that, and now we got to see the alt mode here. And the alt mode pretty much maintains what the original Microman toy did and what the animation model in the show did. By going that route that Floro Dery did, the original animation designer, they avoid having to pay Porsche licensing and at the end of the day give a very different kind of aesthetic and design that was meant for the show, the mini bots, if you will, that were smaller, more squat kind of cars and trucks or whatever. And I like what I see. I know what Masterpiece is trying to achieve here, and I feel that they did that more or less within the limitations of basing something off of something that, again, was never intended to be a one-for-one transformation from animation to 3D transforming product. Look what Third Party does. They go for the full-size Porsche, and they get a completely different aesthetic as a result of it. But that's what happens when you change, the meat that you have to play with, pretty much. So I like what I see with this Chrono Q Micro Porsche here, this Microman Porsche. I like that on the back of the Porsche, if you flip down one of the rear lights, it has the glass gas accessory from the first episode of Transformers More Meets the Eye Part 1, when Laserbeak chased after both Hound and Cliffjumper, and then when they separated in the canyon, one of Laserbeak's canyons detached and chased after Cliffjumper, and Cliffjumper then flipped back one of his rear view lights and shot his glass gas to destroy that blaster. So nice little throwback to the very first episode, and it kind of continues a little bit because when we get into that robot mode, not a lot of surprises here because we got to see that robot mode a while back and we tried to deconstruct everything about it. We still see the same things, that it is, again, based off of a partial retool of Bumblebee. We see that the legs and the hands and certain little accessories are one for one completely the same of the tooling, and then there's a whole bunch of new tooling to make the Cliffjumper aesthetic of that Porsche. It comes with 2 accessories. Comes with his traditional animation accurate regular blaster, and then his long range cannon, which he used to try to take out Megatron. To quote him, "I got Megatron dead center right in my viewfinder," and then of course he missed completely and almost got Hound and everybody killed, but that's a whole other story. If this is going to be probably the same like the Bumblebee, probably going to have swappable faces too. We only see the one face accessory here for the time being, but chances are we're also going to be seeing a second face accessory, maybe even a third, who knows. But the Bumblebee had 2, so chances are it'll probably be the same thing also. And maybe there'll be more accessories. All we know he has the glass gas thing as a little gimmick, and he has the 2 guns. The Bumblebee also was very light on accessories and gimmicks. They had a sticker sheet for all kinds of extra kind of stuff too. Not much I could really think of that we could put with Cliffjumper to really add to that. What will be interesting is probably if they attempt to do repaints later on, we could then get a tap out, which would be pretty cool to get. What they'll put with him, I don't know. And then repaints after that, well, that's up to you guys at that point. Maybe a black repaint. Maybe they'll do a bug bite using this version instead of the Bumblebee. I don't know. Hasbro and Takara sometimes is different when it comes to their uniqueness with their repaints. But this is interesting stuff. Still pretty cool. I dig what I see. And again, I have a soft spot for Cliffjumper. I love the mini bots. I've said that many times on the podcast, so I'm really curious to see how they're going to tackle it. This is still all unofficially announced, though. That's what's amazing about all of this, is that it's the first time really in a very long while that we've had a masterpiece this long in the future revealed through prototype leaks and everything like that, and still no official word from Takara or Hasbro. And I know that Hasbro won't officially say anything because they don't really deal in the G1 Masterpiece game in terms of distribution for the Western market. But I think that we're just kind of maybe waiting for some kind of convention or event in Japan before we get any kind of indication of the reality of this. And this, I get a feeling this green prototype will just show up at some kind of convention in a glass case showing like, here's what's coming in the future, guys. So keep an eye out for that. I'm excited. I know some people aren't a fan of that Bumblebee mold and the backpack and the kibble and everything, but I like what they're doing here. I understand what they're trying to do here. And I mean, if you don't like it, there's alternatives. There's the Fan Toys third-party one. If you want something that's cheaper and also does something different, you also have the Earthrise version. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get many more Cliffjumpers in the future anyways, so it's never the end of the road at the end of it when it comes to any kind of character anyhow. There'll always be something later on that'll give you an option. And this is just one of the many options if you want the Floro Dery Masterpiece animation design.